Such a lively little boy. The sound of my son's cries echoed through the delivery room. After being in the hospital for more than half a day, Hannah, finally gave birth and felt a wave of relief hearing his cries. But in the next moment, something unimaginable happened. My name is Hannah. I'm turning 30 this year. My husband is 3 years older than me and a former boss. My husband, often referred to as an elite, graduated from a famous university and joined his current company. Unlike me, who started as a part-time worker and became a full-time employee after high school, my husband was on the fast track to success. For some reason, he liked me, and after several dinners together, we started dating. I fell in love with his serious nature, and we got married 2 years later. I had planned to work until I got pregnant. Since I got pregnant a year after our marriage, I quit my job and now plan to focus on childcare for a while. Currently, it's just my husband and me living near his parents' home. My husband seemed busy with work, but he's enthusiastic about parenting, going out to look for baby supplies, and attending parenting classes. He's somewhat of an overthinker, so maybe he wants to prepare thoroughly in advance. I'm more of a learn-by-doing person, so while I do review what I learn in parenting classes, I mostly plan to figure things out as I go. But for my husband, he seems anxious if he can't simulate everything in his head. Because of this, he's busy reading parenting books and researching childcare online, even after coming home each day. "You're too casual about it, Hannah. We're raising a precious life here," has become his recent mantra. When choosing the hospital, he was proactive, suggesting a small maternity clinic near his parents' home. I'm not familiar with this area, but after visiting once and meeting the kind doctor, we decided on that clinic. However, as I entered the stable phase of my pregnancy, my husband's attitude changed drastically. He started coming home late, and on weekends, he was either out or holed up in a room. "Hey, I wish you could help out more around the house," I said to him, feeling apologetic. Then he retorted, "I'm tired from working all the time. You're at home, Hannah, and you need to stay active, right? Don't get too comfortable, or you'll lose your strength. You're in your stable phase now, you need to prepare for childbirth." He said it as if he was making perfect sense. Then, "Can you at least spend more time at home? I worry about being alone if something happens." I thought he would understand, but his response was the exact opposite. "You always have your smartphone, so you can contact me anytime. You've got the hospital's number saved, right? Haven't you prepared the things you need for hospitalization yet? Get whatever you need tomorrow, so you're ready to be admitted at any time. Also, make sure you have the number for a maternity taxi registered." What he said made sense, but that wasn't what I was trying to convey. No matter how well prepared I am, being alone is completely different from having someone with me. My husband lived alone for a long time. Maybe he doesn't understand the feeling of being insecure. Still, the child in my belly is ours, both mine and my husband's. If something happens to me, it's not just my life at risk, but our child's too. How can I make my husband understand? I thought about it a lot, but couldn't find the right words to convince my thick-headed husband. Our relationship remains strained as the due date arrives. After seeing my husband off, I suddenly noticed a pain in my stomach. Could it be labor? I messaged my husband, but he didn't reply immediately. Meanwhile, the pain, which seemed like labor contractions, hit me several times. I contacted the hospital, and they advised me to come in if the intervals between the pains got shorter. During a lull in the pain, I grabbed my bags, left the apartment, and got into a taxi. From there, the pain and the flurry of events are mostly a blur in my memory. The birth took over half a day. Such a lively little boy. The baby's cries echoed in the delivery room, and I felt relieved to be freed from the pain. Seeing my newborn child, I was moved to tears, glad that I had persevered. My husband finally arrived at the hospital after work to be present for the birth. Just as I fought to let him hold the baby, he uttered unbelievable words. "Please do a DNA test." What? Both the doctor, the nurses, and everyone present echoed the same word in disbelief. My husband calmly stated, "I can't feel at ease holding the baby unless I'm certain it's mine." His cruel words made me mad. "What are you saying? There's no way this child could be anyone's but yours." Yet, my husband remained calm. "Then, there should be no problem with a DNA test, right?" His words were logical, but it didn't feel right. However, whenever such situations arise, it's always me who ends up being persuaded. The doctor was perplexed, but I can assert with confidence that the likelihood of him being the father is 100%. So, I agreed. A few days later, I was told the DNA test results were in, so I went to hear the conversation between my husband and the doctor. I thought it would be reassuring to confirm the father-child relationship. It was supposed to be a given. But my husband's smirking expression bothered me. What was he thinking? Then, the doctor revealed an unexpected truth. "This child is 100% not yours." "What?" As I asked for clarification, the doctor, looking perplexed, informed me that while the child is mine, a father-child relationship with my husband could not be proven. My husband looked down on me and said, "I don't know what made you so confident, Hannah, but this is the result. I don't care whose child it is. Well, at least I don't have to raise someone else's kid. Obviously, this means divorce." Tears started falling from my eyes. I couldn't tell if I was feeling angry, sad, or something else entirely. I was terrified because I truly had no recollection of any wrongdoing. Since giving birth, I haven't been separated from my son, so a mix-up seemed impossible. Then why? Leaving the doctor and me in confusion, my husband walked away. My parents live far away, and since my husband had initially been eager to be involved in child care, I hadn't planned on returning to my parents' home after birth. So, after being discharged, I had to take care of my son alone. When I got home, my husband was not there. His clothes were gone, so he must be staying somewhere else. I was so busy caring for my son that I didn't have the energy to look for my husband. About a week later, my husband contacted me. "I'll send the divorce papers, sign them. I'll definitely be seeking alimony, so be prepared," he said. Holding bad mood son, I took the call and my anger was fully directed at my husband. What are you talking about? I haven't done anything to be sued for alimony. Let's meet face to face and have a fair discussion. Not just over the phone," I shouted back, irritated by his one-sided claims. Seemingly not expecting any pushback, he said nothing and hung up the phone. That's when I finally felt like I regained my own strength. Shocked by my husband's suspicion and the result claiming the baby wasn't his, and overwhelmed by the unfamiliar task of caring for a newborn, I had completely exhausted myself and lost my sense of self. But my anger towards my husband finally woke me up. I opened the contact of a former senior colleague from my workplace. She was a capable woman who had helped me rise from a part-time employee to a full-time one. She was also my husband's senior and had been happy about our marriage and pregnancy, but we had drifted apart after I quit my job. Now, she was the only person I could rely on. With resolve, I decided to call her. Her reaction was entirely different from what I had expected. "Hannah, how are you? The baby was born, right? Congratulations." I told my senior everything. "I really haven't cheated, and I thought maybe you'd know something about his behavior at work." Hearing this, she reluctantly mentioned that my husband's behavior had been odd for a while. A woman who joined the company after I left, who happened to be his high school classmate, seemed unusually close to him recently, and it had caught her attention. However, she felt bad about telling me without any concrete proof. "If that's the case, I'll look into it a bit more. Don't worry, Hannah, just focus on taking good care of the baby." Reassured by my senior's reliable words, I felt at ease. Just 3 days later, she contacted me with news. It turned out that my husband was cheated on with a colleague. Moreover, the other woman was the daughter of the hospital director where I gave birth. Can you believe that? I couldn't help but exclaim loudly at how small the world seemed. The person who had attended my delivery was the director's wife. In other words, the mother of my husband's mistress. But I trust that doctor. I consulted with my senior, and we planned our next steps. However, the next day, my husband returned home and presented the divorce papers, wanting to discuss alimony. I hadn't been concerned at all, thinking he was with his mistress, but this development made me break out in a cold sweat. I wasn't yet prepared with enough evidence to confront my husband. But I can't possibly pay alimony. I took a deep breath. I have no intention of paying any alimony. As I've said many times, I have not cheated, and if you doubt that so much, I want another DNA test done. If the results were wrong, we might have to consider suing the hospital. I tried to stay as calm as possible, but my husband was even calmer. The reason I was so shocked is that I believed in you, Hannah. I never wanted to do a DNA test. A friend of mine was tricked into raising someone else's child. So he said it's best to get a DNA test done right after the baby is born. I never imagined I'd get such a result. My husband looked regretful. I couldn't tell if he was being sincere or just acting. But I can't get the image of my husband's expression when he heard the DNA test results out of my head. That smirking face is the one he always makes when things go his way. Why didn't I realize it at the time? He must be plotting something. I've been passive up until now, but I won't back down anymore. That's why we should do the DNA test again. I also feel uncomfortable about it. Let's find another place to do it, not that hospital. You're planning to go to another agency and forge the results. Trying to hide your affair is the lowest, he retorted. My husband's words made me pause in realization. But just then, my sleeping son began to cry. As I rushed to pick him up, my husband said, if we're doing the test again, it will be at the same hospital. I'll contact them again, and then he left the house. I hurriedly called my senior, who told me, we've gathered the evidence. If you need a lawyer, I know someone. What do you want to do? So, I decided to consult a lawyer the next day. And the day after, I was ready to put our plan into action. Holding my son, I hurried to a nearby restaurant. It was the place my senior had designated. As I entered, I was led to a private room. There, along with my senior, were my husband and his mistress, Hannah. My husband exclaimed in surprise, and the mistress turned pale beside him. I had received a call from my senior the day before. Those two are meeting under the pretense of work. Can you come too, with your lawyer? I nodded in agreement. It's not my husband who should be filing for divorce and demanding alimony, it's me. My senior had already gathered evidence of his affair and passed it to the lawyer, and we were also going to settle the DNA test issue. As I took a seat in the room, the lawyer followed. The lawyer stated my wish to divorce and my intention to claim alimony for his infidelity. Of course, my husband didn't back down. I'm the one demanding alimony. The DNA test results already proved that child isn't mine, and I haven't committed any affair. He probably thinks he hasn't been caught for his affair. He came out very aggressively. However, I took out photos from my bag and scattered them on the table. And you still dare to say you didn't have an affair? The photos showed my husband and his mistress arm in arm in the city and embracing in a car. My senior had enlisted several co-workers to help and followed them, leading to these results. And there's also this, I said, as I started playing a video on my smartphone. In the video, my husband was talking to his mistress, saying he'd sue me for alimony and get divorced as soon as possible, and then they could get married after a while. How could you do such a thing at your workplace? I confronted my husband, and the faces of him and his mistress visibly changed. Even in such a chaotic scene, my son, held by my senior, slept peacefully, hinting at his potential to become a great person in the future. I must be strong now, for my child's sake. Just then, the door to the private room opened. Standing there was the hospital doctor, the mother of my husband's mistress. As I informed you, doctor, this is the situation. I'm sorry to have called you here, I said politely. The doctor, looking pale, bowed her head to me and then turned to scold her daughter. What have you done? Are you trying to ruin the reputation of our hospital? Falsifying DNA test results is absolutely unacceptable. My husband and his mistress, now completely pale, were unable to say a word. I turned to my husband and said, "You accused me of planning to forge the DNA test, but those were the exact words of someone who had done it themselves, right? You insisted on the same hospital for a retest, which I found suspicious. And you had an unrequited love for her in the past, didn't you? You strongly recommended this hospital, hoping for a chance to reunite, didn't you?" I then turned to my husband's mistress. "So, you were a medical administrator until recently. Skillfully cutting and pasting other people's certificates for forgery. Quite a complex scheme, but for someone with such skills, your methods were poor." As I dug deeper, various facts came to light, giving me a headache. The idea that she could create a fake paternity test convincing enough to temporarily deceive her doctor mother was impressive in a way, but her execution had overly optimistic. In fact, when I consulted with the doctor and had the test thoroughly re-examined, it was revealed to be a forgery. The doctor immediately apologized to me. Had the mistress continued working at the hospital, she might never have met my husband, and none of this would have happened. However, due to her prude attitude at the hospital, she was let go and ended up transferring to my husband's company. It's indeed a small world. I looked at my husband's mistress. I told everything to the doctor and had it investigated. Did you two really want to be together so badly? If so, why not get divorced first and then start a relationship? That would be the proper way. As I shouted, the mistress just silently hung her head. My husband, trying to defend her, retorted angrily, "I made a mistake marrying Hannah. My true soulmate is her. It was a mistake marry you." I couldn't help but laugh at his words. You're calling her your soulmate when the relationship can't even last without your financial support. The mistress is known for her extravagant spending, relying on men to support her lifestyle as her income wasn't enough. My husband unfortunately became a perfect target for her. On a fast track to success with a decent income. Plus, with a fabricated story of a wife's infidelity. You'd get alimony, ensuring no financial worries for a while. You didn't realize you were such a profitable source for her. I scowled at my husband and his mistress as I spoke. Finally realizing he was being used, my husband said, "You saw me like that. You suggested demanding alimony for that reason." The mistress, meanwhile, turned pale as her own mother. The doctor told her, "You are no daughter of mine. Be prepared for the consequences of your actions. I'll be submitting this." I had filled out and brought the divorce papers my husband left behind. He suddenly became frantic. When I showed it to him, he said, "Wait, Hannah, just wait a minute." "What? I don't see any reason to wait in this situation. You're the one who wanted a divorce. Well, I'll be the one demanding alimony and child support, though." Leaving my husband and his mistress behind, we left the place. Later, through a lawyer, I formally demanded alimony from my ex-husband. The divorce was finalized, with alimony and child support duly paid. My ex-husband and his mistress apparently broke up. But the story spread quickly at their workplace, making it uncomfortable for both of them, leading to their resignation. When I heard from my ex-husband's parents, he contacted me to apologize. He had moved back to live with them. As long as the child support is regularly deposited, I have no other interest in him. The mistress was disowned by her parents and sued by the hospital. She's now living in a run-down apartment, but that's none of my concern. As for me, after that incident, my colleagues, feeling sympathetic and with my senior's arrangement, provided me with work I could do from home. Surrounded by supportive colleagues, my son and I are living happily.